I'm an idiot. On this particular coil and with this ignition setup, it's the middle post. Beautiful. Oh, I can't move around my shop. Oh, God. Oh, Jesus. Jesus Christ. All right.
For a little while before I'm back on them again. Don't just ride the drum all the way. And that was Lewiston Hill. Pretty good. Now I'm going to go check out the...
All right, time to wire this guy in. I've got the Blake's bread. Always breed your Blakes. Aha! All that looking, I found one bolt that will do the trick. Hey Adam. Alright, today we're working on more wiring and ignition. I'm going to start by replacing the cam cover gasket, and then I will install our timing set, which is actually a pretty cool little unit. I'll show you here in a minute. But let's get this new gasket on. Aha! I'm an idiot. I'm going to put a drop of oil on the journals for the cam, as well as inside the journals. Alright, gasket goes on. Cam cover's on, new gasket installed, pre-lubed the cam journals. Let's get it buttoned up. Alright, I'm going to work on getting the timing back in and wired to the coil. This is an interesting little setup. It's got the mechanical advance, like a standard set of points, but it's electronic ignition. Kind of neat. Never seen that before. If anybody's running one of these, let me know. This is made by CompuFire Accuray, and it's got a static timing light built right in. Tighten down our motor. Picture I took, it looks like it's red on the left side, black on the right side. Alright, there's our coil mounted up to our ignition. It needs a battery, which is charging currently, if it'll hold a charge. It's an older battery. The regulator is installed, it just needs to be wired. I need to install I have a 30 amp circuit breaker and a 30 amp key switch, which are going to be, I think, mounted right here, right behind the battery. Keep all the wiring nice and tucked. So, yeah, let's get started. To that end, I went down to AutoZone. And I picked up, let's see, here's our 30 amp key switch. It's got, let's see, accessory back, and then it's got on and start, and really we just use the on and start. And we got 30 amp circuit breaker right here. Actually, I realized that I still haven't put on the oil, the crankcase breather hose back to the oil line, or oil tank rather, excuse me. So let's get that mounted up here. Alright, so the key switch, which I just picked up here, is just a really basic unit from AutoZone that I use on pretty much all my bikes. It's going to be mounted, I think, right there. This should just pop off. There we go. So that all you see sticking out is that little bit right there, and this nut. Boop, just like that. Alright, so these are the factory rubber mounts for the electronics cover, which has all this built-in wiring harness holder crap underneath it. We're going to get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is cut these and use a washer and a nut on the other side so that I can use the factory hardware again. And there's 3. So there's our rubber grommet trimmed up, and it's going to go just behind here, like so. The factory mount, frame mount, factory hardware goes through, and we'll just use a nut and a bolt on the other side. Let's get the other 2 trimmed up. Alright, here's our factory electronics cover. Pop a screw in there. Washer and nut on the back. Screws are a little short, so we're going to have to replace those. There we go. And it still has some flex in it thanks to the rubber. That's how our electronics cover will be mounted. The key switch will be right in here. Alright, let's get this plate drilled, which is a point of no return here. Piece of tape to keep the paint in good shape. There we go. There's a fairly clean hole, and our key switch will sit through just like that. There we go, guys. How about that for a key switch? Alright, and what I'm thinking is that I'll mount the circuit breaker right here. Alright, next thing I want to do is mount our circuit breaker to the side of the battery box. It's already drilled and tapped for a sheet metal screw on one side, so I'm just going to drill the second one. Okay, there we go. There's our circuit breaker mounted to the side of our battery box. Nice and clean. Alright, got my starter cable and my ground strap here, so I'm going to get these on. Go. Alright, ready for a battery. There's a couple of things I need to address before this bike cranks over for the first time, electronics wise. I need to wire the coil and ignition to a battery source. I need to run a lead from the starter exciter, the starter solenoid, to the key switch, and I need to run power to the circuit breaker from the battery, and then power from the circuit breaker to the key switch. Once all that's done, it should at least crank over. I do want to make sure that I've topped off the oil and primary fluid, and I'm a little nervous about this clutch. I believe it's supposed to start in any gear and not, send you through the wall, but I'm going to put it in neutral for our first start. The clutch plates and steels were also kind of dry when I installed them. I didn't soak them in primary oil, so I don't want those to lock up. I'm going to start by running power where our battery would be to the circuit breaker. So this is some 10 gauge that I use for that. It's a real short lead. There we go. So there's our little lead to take power from our battery to our circuit breaker, just like that. Alright, so now I'm going to create a lead to bring power from our battery terminal to the circuit breaker. The circuit breaker will then pass it on to the key switch. I'm going to start with this 10 gauge wire and a couple of these terminals. These come with the plastic on there, which I don't use. They end up in the garbage. I strip the plastic off, throw my terminal on. Okay. And then I've got a little bit of heat shrink tube that I put on rather than those plastic bits. There you go. So there's one end that's going to go to our battery. The other end, which I think I'll make a little larger here to fit on a battery post, is going to go here. That'll go from the positive terminal over to the circuit breaker, just like so. It looks like it goes on the copper terminal. There we go. That's going to hook up to the battery here, and that will bring power over to our circuit breaker. Next thing we want to do is bring power from our circuit breaker to our key switch. And I've already got that one made here. So this is just a little bit shorter of a lead because it needs to go even less far to get to the key switch. So that's going to go one side on the circuit breaker, and the other side goes to the key switch, and it goes to the battery terminal. There we go. So once our battery's installed, we've now got power at the key. Okay, next thing I'm going to create is a wire running from the starter exciter to the start position of the key switch. And I have here, I think this is just 16 or 14? 16. So this is 16 gauge wire. And on one end, it's going to get a female spade terminal, because that's what our starter uses. If I have any. I may need to go to the parts store. Oh, look at that. I may just have one left. So there's our starter end, female spade. And the other end is going to get an I terminal to go onto the key switch. Alright, there's our lead going from our starter solenoid to the key switch. Okay. Starter is the center. I'm going to route this around in such a way that it doesn't get pinched by anything. Alright, there we go. There's our starter solenoid wired up to the key. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is run our regulator wire to the circuit breaker. So there's nothing for it. I have to cut off the factory switch. Like so. Alright, last thing to do is power a coil, and we're going to do that. We run the lead to the on this particular coil, and with this ignition setup, it's the middle post, which looks like it's the front cylinder. So if you're using one of these, this particular key switch actually is marked for ignition, which is nice. So we'll throw that wire on there. Actually, I think I want to run it back behind here. We'll tighten that one too. Okay, I think we're good. Let's, before I even crank it over, I want to fill up the primary with fluid and then fill up the oil tank as well. So let's do that. So here's where we're at, guys. This thing just would not turn over. It would do maybe one revolution at a time, and then it would just quit. And I was really worried that I did something with the clutch while installing it, but I took the plugs out just because I wanted to test spark. And I checked the carb. I gave it a little bit of gas. The accelerator pump is working, so I assume the rest of it's probably working. But I pulled the plugs out. We've got really strong spark at both plugs. The timing is exactly the way it was when I took this bike apart. So here we go. So when we start it up, there we go. So it'll turn over with no compression. And the clutch isn't making any noise, so that tells me that it's definitely the starter. It just can't overcome the compression with the plugs in. So we're going to pull the starter off of this 94 that's sitting here. Which is still there. And fortunately the primary is already off of this one, so that saves half the work for me. I just got to undo those two bolts and disconnect the wiring. But it does mean I have to drain the primary again, pull the cover off so I can access those two bolts. So alright, let's get to it. Let's pull the starter off the 94. Pop it on this one. Come on. Come on. There we go. Got her. Oh, I don't think you need to see this part. Alright, got the old starter out. Got the new starter in. It is an ugly son of a bitch, but, well, I guess we'll see. I don't know for a fact that this one works. So I think we'll try it, just bump it before we go and put everything back together. All right. Oh, goodness. Goodness. All right, we got it wired back up. Let's just bump it and see if the starter just works to begin with before I even worry about is it going to turn it over. I just want to see if the damn thing works, which I could have tested beforehand, but works great. All right, we got the plugs back in. I'm going to jump it again and see if it'll turn over with compression. Huh. Just does not want to start with compression. Oh, could be because that's dead. Let's try it again. My jumper is dead. It's charging right now. Even with a dead jumper battery, this starter is able to turn it over at least once or twice. So I think it's a little stronger. We'll see for sure once we get this jumper charged up all the way and give it all the juice. Okay, the battery's had a chance to recharge a little bit. So let's try it again, right? Why not? Let's see what happens. Beautiful. And that's on like half a battery. That thing's still pretty dead, but plugs are in, it's got compression, and it turns over. I'm fucking ecstatic right now. I'm not too ecstatic about the shitty looking starter, but that can be addressed at a later date. The important thing, as with anything, is that it works. So I'm super happy. Let's keep going. All right, I just went ahead and got the key, the headlight mounted up to the key switch like that in the accessory position, which is on the run side, and then it also has just the accessory, which is on the counterclockwise position. So headlight works. Let's try to do the same with the tail light. All right, so we've got our sissy bar back on. I had to modify this license plate holder. This is originally the kind that would kick off the side of the axle. I hate those. I just think they're the dumbest thing. But that's my personal opinion. Brake lights, I like to mount them up high, nice and visible. Same with the license plate. So, I mean, obviously, license plate goes where the brake light goes, right? So I had to modify this a little bit, take the bend out of it. It was kind of at like a, maybe like a 30-degree angle bent, a little more. And got a little bit close to 180 there, and that's going to be mounted just like that. And then this will probably get cleaned up and just hit with a coat of black enamel. So there's our bracket. What I want to do now is get this tail light to work. It's got 3 wires here. 2 of them are green, but it's going into what appears to be the factory harness. So I'm going to strip this this wire loom off a little bit and see what's going on under here, because I believe that somebody has already gone through and probably just crimped something on. Let's take a look. Alright, so we got this dual lamp Ford Model A taillight style. Got it pulled apart and we stripped off the wiring. So these are kind of nice. They're grounded to the housing, and they have 2 wires. This is for your brake, and the bottom one is for your license plate and running light. So 2 wires internally grounded. I think that what we're going to have to do in this case, because both brakes run off of switches on the bar, I really want to run more wires on the front end. I think that I am going to run a banjo bolt fitting just straight up from the caliper on the rear up to the brake light switch here. The other thing I need to do is get some bulbs. The brake light bulb works fine, but the running light bulb, the number 89 I think they are, is burnt out, so got to replace that. Alright, so we're back on wiring today. Oh, I can't move around my shop. Oh god, oh Jesus. Jesus Christ. Alright. So I've got this license plate frame and tail light mounted up there, just like that. I had to replace the running light bulb in this one because it was bad. So I did that. I've got these 2 leads for, this is our running light and this is our brake light. And I had to, because I have all this rubber mounting on here, it's insulated. Normally the housing would be grounded. So I've got to run a ground wire. I'm just going to run it down here to the bottom of the sissy bar. It's going to break off from the main harness there. And I'm just going to ground it to the sissy bar. I'll show you here. So I've got it ground. I've got this jumper grounded on the frame. And I've got, let's see, attach our positive there. Try not to short anything out. And then now I can see all the places I can ground this, and one of them just happens to be right there on the sissy bar. So I'm just going to run a simple little lead right off the harness to this bolt here on the sissy bar, and then I'll run the tail and running light wires up to the key switch, or rather the running light to the key, the brake light to the brake switch, which is on the way from Amazon. It's one of those banjo bolts. I didn't want to run, these have switches on them, these handlebar controls. I did not want to run 2 more wires from each all the way down the frame and make the front end look even more cluttered. I want to keep it just as minimal as we can possibly keep it. So no wires up front. So that's what we're doing now.
For a little while before I'm back on them again. Don't just ride the drum all the way. And that was Lewiston Hill. Pretty good. Now I'm going to go check out the
Alright, so we've got our wires run for our tail light. We've got just the key on, there we go, headlights on, running light is on the bottom, and then we're still waiting for a brake light switch, but there's our brake light. Fired up. So there's our tail light wires run, cleaned up with some wire loom. We'll just get zip tied or something to this sissy bar. It's going to run in alongside of the fender here, and then over the frame, and then kind of tucked behind where our key switch is. I've also run them all the way up the center. Another little zip tie will hold that there, all the way up to the headlight. So that's our wiring done. let's get this fender mounted, maybe for the last time. Let's throw it on there. All right, there we go. So I've got the fender on. I got the wires kind of routed where I want them to go. I could tuck them in a little cleaner, I suppose. There we go. There we go. We got our brake wires run. I've just got a lead coming off of here. This is the brake light, so I'm going to wire this through a switch that's pressure activated off the caliper, and then we'll wire that back into the accessory power. But I've got key on power to the lights, so we're wired up. We'll run a couple of zip ties, I think, on all this wire loom just to keep it nice and tidy. It's almost there. Alright, so I've got our brake switch installed here. It's not wired yet because I want pressure in the lines, and I have to bleed the brake again to do that. I want to make sure that the switch actually works before I finish wiring it in. So now we're going to, again, lead this rear brake. Alright, time to wire this guy in. I've got the Blake's bread. Always breed your Blakes. Anyway, I don't think these are directional in the ones that I've used before, so it shouldn't matter which one of these goes to the switch and which one goes to the light. What I'm going to do, because it just kind of perfectly reaches up here, is just crimp an I terminal on one of these and run it right to the key switch, to the accessory position. And then this one I will run with I'm going to put a different kind of spade, a wider spade on that side, and then a female spade on the lead for our tail light, like so. And that way it'll be serviceable later on. I can take it apart if I need to. So, and we'll do that all up here, right off the harness. Make it nice and clean. Let's do that. Okay, there's our I terminal crimped on, ready to go to the key switch. Okie dokie. So the small red wire here is coming from our switch, or brake light switch, that is, pressure switch, to the key in the accessory position. And then the other lead is coming off of the brake. I have to wrap this back around the other side of the frame, but it's coming off the switch into the tail light. So, if I did this correctly, and it's not directional like I thought, I don't know why it would be. I'm going to turn the light on. So we've got a headlight, we got tail light. And you tell me what you see. Do the brakes work? Cool. So there we go. There's our brake light switch wired up. And like I said before, what I could have done is run wires all the way from the switches on the bars, down the bars, all the way down the frame to the key switch, and then back up to the tail light. But that would have been just a mess. These are worth the 20 bucks or whatever it is these switches cost. I think they're made by Goodwrench or something like that. Anyway, they're pretty easy to find on Amazon, or you can go on TC Bros or Lowbrow and probably pay twice as much for them. But yeah, get yourself one of these if you're trying to clean up your wiring. Super easy to do. Alrighty, there we go. So there's our brake switch wired in, and nice and clean. We got the cover plate back on, which is kind of a pain in the ass to get to. Now that I got the fender on, these bolts are really hard to reach to get them out on the back side, so maybe I'll figure out something to do with that. But you know what? I think we're ready to go.
I don't know why.